like Batman. I like stories in the main continuity, and I like absolute Batman. But sometimes I'm looking for something a little different. So today, I want to talk about the craziest Batman comics ever written. Now, I'm not saying these are the best Batman stories, although some of them are pretty great. They're definitely not in the mainline continuity, but these are the tales that went off the rails in good, bad, and sometimes very questionable ways. Unfortunately, some of these are pretty hard to find now, but you can join us on the Discord and maybe we can hunt some of them down together. I'll put the link in the description. Now, let's dive in and count down Batman's weirdest, wildest stories from kind of out there to completely unhinged. At number 10, we have Superman and Batman, World's Funnest. This story follows Batmite and Mr. Mxyzptlk, I can never say that name, as they destroy universes across the multiverse. It's very chaotic. Pretty much every version of Batman you can think of shows up. There's cartoon versions, hyper-realistic versions, and they're all colliding in one very wild, very meta comic book. If you like fourth wall breaking humor, kind of Deadpool, but I guess a little more wholesome maybe, then you might like it. There's definitely not much of a serious story to be had. It's almost like a Mad Magazine kind of thing, but you know, that may be just what you're looking for. And at number 10, that's what we got. At number 9, we've got Batman Year 100 by Paul Pope. This one sets Batman in a dystopian Gotham in the year 2039, 100 years after his first appearance in 1939, where government surveillance is just constant and ever present. The government has control over everything. The federal government comes in and tells the GCPD what to do. It's just very, well, it's very dystopic. The one element that's kind of out there is they have telepaths. It doesn't play a huge role in the story. It actually plays such a small role that I'm not exactly sure what the point of it was, other than to make it so that it was a little harder for Batman to unravel the mystery. But anyway, this Batman, he's stripped down. He's a mythic figure rebelling against a totalitarian state. He's not even known. They don't even know who Batman is. They've gotten rid of all the masked superheroes. He's the last one left. You start off right in the middle of the action. Batman's on the run from government agents. They've got, it's a kind of, the art is almost Frank Miller-esque. They've got these cool like masks and the goggles make them look kind of bug-eyed. It's very great. It's great art. So yeah, Batman, he's been shot. He's on the run and they got dogs on him, and it's got really high stakes for a Batman story. He's trying to unravel a government conspiracy that would threaten the whole world if it were able to come to fruition. So I loved this. Thought it was really gritty, almost had a cyberpunk feel. Depending on your taste, might be a little too slow, might be a little too dark, but it's a very unique spin. And it's just, I'd say, well worth a read. At number 8, we have Batman Red Rain. Batman fighting Dracula is a fun twist, but in this one, it gets a little bit weirder than that. Batman actually becomes a vampire himself. If you're a fan of gothic horror, this is one you may really enjoy. It's got a dark, brooding tone. The art is very eerie. It may be a little too horror heavy for some. I know that even though Batman's sort of one of the darker, grittier heroes, we're not exactly looking to him for horror. Regardless, it is a very wild Elseworlds tale, but not one that everybody loves, so you'll just have to see what you think. Number 7 is Batman Leatherwing. Batman is a swashbuckling pirate, sailing the high seas as Leatherwing and battling a pirate Joker. So if you're a fan of pulpy old adventure and old school pirate stories, then this is one that might be just your cup of tea. It's fun, doesn't take itself too seriously. It's got very cool world building, that classic adventure feel, but like many, even, well, probably most of the titles on this list, you might find it's a little too out there, but you know, if you're one of those handful of people who always said, you know what I really want? A pirate Batman. In that case, it doesn't get any better than this. Number 6, Batman, Two Faces. We've got a sort of Victorian London, kind of Gotham by gaslight sort of feel, but there is a twist. Batman has a split personality like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's got a gothic atmosphere. It's more psychologically deep than some Batman stories, which is pretty cool, especially as it's a one shot. It's not something you're going to have to spend a ton of time reading. That is, of course, assuming you can find it to read it in the first place. Some people maybe would think this whole Jekyll Hyde thing is too on the nose for Batman, but I think it's an interesting way to explore Bruce Wayne's duality and just really push the character into new territory, in this case, horror territory, which, as we said before, maybe that's not for you. Number 5 brings us to Batman Last Night on Earth by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. Batman wakes up in a post-apocalyptic wasteland carrying the Joker's severed head in a jar. And the head talks. So definitely one of the more outlandish ones. It's got great art. There's this Batman on this dark, strange journey across a fallen world. It's dark, but fun if you're into that sort of thing. It's another one where the story may be too out there, especially with all the moments with the talking head when it's talking. But it is definitely a bold, haunting vision of a potential future for Batman. And I'm sure you wouldn't be watching this video if you weren't looking for something a little wild and outlandish, right? In 4th place, we have Batman Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious earth. This one's written by Grant Morrison and drawn by Dave McKean, and it finds Batman entering an Arkham Asylum where the inmates are in control, and Batman is forced to confront his own fears. It's got a very surreal, psychological horror vibe. Really haunting art style that I thought is really great. It feels like a nightmare reading it, and that may or may not be what you're looking for in a Batman story. But it's definitely a very interesting story. It can get a little bit abstract and confusing sometimes, but check it out. See what you think. We have now entered the top 3. And at number 3, we have Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham by Mike Mignola. This one is set in the 1920s, and you find Batman and he's facing down eldritch horrors, cosmic cults. It's just, a good old-fashioned Lovecraftian nightmare. If you're a Lovecraft fan, you'll love the dark, eerie atmosphere, the pretty unique historical setting. If you're a Hellboy fan or a fan of Mike Mignola in general, you'll just love seeing his take on the Caped Crusader. And that's more my camp. I just think he's awesome, and I love what he does with Hellboy. So I would probably read just about any take that he put out on any superhero. The cosmic horror element of this one is definitely a different approach to Batman, but what else are you going to expect from Mike Mignola? It's a one-of-a-kind Elseworlds tale, takes Batman into realms no other story does. At number 2, we are getting even crazier. Batman Odyssey by Neil Adams. This story has Batman fighting dinosaurs, traveling to mystical realms, and taking on ancient warriors. You had me at dinosaurs. It's kind of like Neil Adams just went all out with every crazy idea he ever had about Batman. I think that you will hopefully really like the audacity of it all. He's getting after it on the crazy scale. But you may find it confusing. You may love it. You may love it and find it confusing. It's very chaotic and dreamlike. And at the end, if you're wondering what's real and what's not, I think, you made it to the right place. It's not for everyone, but it's crazy. I couldn't not put it on the list. And now number 1, the craziest Batman story of all. The infamous all-star Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder by Frank Miller and Jim Lee. Here we've got a very brutal, unpredictable anti-hero of a Batman who kidnaps Dick Grayson, leaves him alone in the Batcave to eat rats, and calls himself the goddamn Batman. He goes to extremes that we rarely see, and I'm not sure I like it. But if you just take it on its own as a kooky, out there, non-canon Batman story, you just might enjoy it. Or you might find it too edgy and mean-spirited and want to throw it away right away. And you can do that unless you're reading it digitally. Don't throw away your iPad. And there you have it. 10 Batman stories ranked by pure insanity, not necessarily greatness. So let me know what you think. Which one of these stories sounds interesting to you? Which ones have you read? Which ones sound totally garbage? And if there's any wild Batman comic that I missed, let me know. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more DC deep dives.